In the year 2147, humanity had reached the pinnacle of technological advancement. Artificial intelligence controlled vast cityscapes, self-sustaining colonies flourished on Mars, and quantum computers provided instantaneous access to knowledge. But amid all this progress, there was one frontier that remained silent: space. The great interstellar silence persisted despite humanity's vast expansion into the cosmos. No contact with alien civilizations, no signals from the depths of space, just a chilling void. Scientists had long theorized that intelligent life must exist elsewhere, but the evidence was lacking.
Until one fateful evening, everything changed.
It began with a series of faint, unexplained anomalies picked up by deep space scanners. Dr. Naomi Clark, a leading astrophysicist working with the Galactic Communication Initiative (GCI), had been analyzing data from the newly commissioned Xanthias Array, a global network of observatories designed to listen for extraterrestrial signals. The Xanthias Array was located on a remote moon in the outer reaches of the Sol system, far away from the interference of human activity. Dr. Clark had grown used to the occasional blip, naturally occurring space phenomena, like cosmic radiation or solar winds. But this was different. The signal appeared at first as a subtle fluctuation in the data, an odd pattern, too regular to be random. Naomi leaned forward, studying the data. The pulses were rhythmic, like a heartbeat. But it wasn't the pattern alone that caught her attention. The signal seemed to be coded. There were bursts of data, alternating with pauses, followed by more bursts. As she cross-checked the readings with existing databases, Naomi realized something astounding. This wasn't a natural event, it was artificial. The implications were staggering. For the first time in history, humanity might have detected proof of intelligent extraterrestrial life. But what did the message mean? Who, or what was sending it? The next few hours were a blur of activity. Naomi contacted her colleague, Dr. Marcus Avery, an expert in alien linguistics. He was known for his unconventional theories about extraterrestrial communication, and Naomi knew his expertise could be invaluable. When Marcus arrived at the observatory, his eyes lit up as he studied the data stream. This is it, he muttered under his breath. This is the first real proof that we are not alone. Together, they began to decode the signal. They used every resource available to them, but the puzzle was complex. The signal wasn't just a series of random numbers or letters. It was structured, almost like a language. But the rules of that language were unlike anything humanity had encountered before. After days of sleepless work, Naomi and Marcus finally broke the code. The message was simple but profound.
We are waiting. A chill ran down Naomi's spine.
The message wasn't a greeting. It wasn't an invitation to communicate. It was a statement of expectation. Whoever, or whatever, was on the other end of the signal was waiting for a response. And it didn't stop there. The signal shifted. Another sequence of data emerged, this time containing a set of coordinates. The location was far outside the known regions of the galaxy, a star system in the farthest corner of the Milky Way. The message wasn't just a signal, it was a map. Naomi stared at the coordinates in disbelief. If they followed the directions, they would travel beyond the furthest reaches of humanity's exploration. They would be heading toward the unknown. The signal was guiding them somewhere. But to what? Marcus turned to her, his face pale. Do we go? What if this is a trap? What if we're not ready? Naomi took a deep breath, her mind racing. The risk was enormous, but the opportunity was equally unprecedented. An alien civilization had reached out to them. There was no way they could ignore this. Humanity needed answers. We have no choice, she said, her voice resolute. We go. We have to know what's out there. In the days that followed, the world was captivated by the news. The Galactic Communication Initiative, GCI, had confirmed that the signal was indeed legitimate. Governments, private corporations, and even civilian organizations began to prepare for the next big step in human history, a voyage to the coordinates embedded in the alien signal. The stakes were unimaginably high. Naomi Clark became the face of the mission. As the lead scientist on the project, she was tasked with overseeing the research, decoding, and ultimately coordinating the expedition. Marcus Avery, though less public, played a crucial role in deciphering the linguistic patterns of the signal. Together, they formed the backbone of the team, but there was one question that lingered in Naomi's mind every day: what would they find when they reached the destination? The first phase of the mission was to assemble a crew capable of making the journey. The coordinates from the signal led to a star system known as Epsilon 9, located in the farthest known quadrant of the galaxy. The system was not uncharted, but it was barely explored. Spacefaring humanity had not ventured this far before. No one knew what dangers awaited them in the cold, unexplored darkness of the cosmos. As the months passed, the mission gained momentum. Funding poured in from all corners of the globe, and the first interstellar ship designed to carry humans beyond the solar system was constructed, the Daedalus. It was a marvel of engineering, a self-sustaining vessel capable of traveling at near-light speeds. The ship was equipped with advanced AI systems, state-of-the-art propulsion, and a crew of 100 scientists, engineers, and astronauts, all handpicked for their expertise. Naomi and Marcus were among the first to board. The two had formed an unlikely but deeply effective partnership, driven by their shared desire to unravel the mysteries of the signal. Their work had already revealed so much, but Naomi couldn't shake the feeling that they were only scratching the surface. There was so much more to learn. The rest of the crew, though they respected Naomi and Marcus, often looked to them for guidance, knowing that they were the ones who had unlocked the secret that had set the mission in motion. The launch was scheduled for a quiet, early morning in late October. The public was invited to watch the event via holographic broadcasts, but only the most important individuals were allowed to attend in person. The ship, bathed in the glow of artificial lights, stood ready for its maiden voyage. Its sleek design was both futuristic and imposing. It was a testament to humanity's ingenuity, but also a symbol of the unknown, a vessel bound for a place no human had ever been. As Naomi stood on the bridge, watching the final preparations unfold, she felt a mix of awe and trepidation. The moment had arrived. They were going to venture into the dark abyss of space, into a region of the galaxy that no one had ever dared to explore.
Are you ready?
Marcus's voice broke through her thoughts. He stood beside her, his face drawn with both excitement and concern. Naomi nodded slowly. I don't think anyone can ever be truly ready for something like this. But we don't have a choice. We have to go. With a final series of checks, the countdown began. Tension filled the air, and for a moment, the vastness of space seemed to press down on them. This wasn't just a mission for knowledge. It was a mission for humanity itself. The engines of the Daedalus roared to life, and the ship slowly lifted off the ground. The viewers, scattered across the world, watched in stunned silence as the massive craft ascended into the atmosphere and beyond. Once past the planet's protective shield, the ship's engines ignited in full force, propelling them toward the stars. The journey was long, and the initial excitement of departure soon gave way to the monotony of space travel. Days turned into weeks, and the crew settled into a routine. The AI systems aboard the Daedalus kept everyone safe, monitoring the ship's systems and ensuring that nothing went wrong. The crew's primary focus was on monitoring the data streams from the signal, hoping for any further clues as to what awaited them at their destination. Naomi and Marcus spent their days in the ship's research lab, continuing their work on the signal's code. They had discovered new patterns, new sequences within the data, but it was still unclear what the aliens wanted. Every step forward raised more questions than answers. And then, one day, as they approached the final stretch of their journey, the signal changed again. This time, the message was different. It wasn't just an invitation. It was a command. Prepare to meet us.
The message left Naomi and Marcus reeling.
Prepare to meet us. What could it mean? Were they being summoned? Or was this an alien warning, a veiled threat? The shift in tone had brought the gravity of their mission into sharp focus. They were no longer explorers simply seeking knowledge. They were entering a potential encounter with an alien species, and it was no longer a question of if they would meet them, but when. The crew of the Daedalus was briefed on the new development. Naomi and Marcus were careful in their choice of words, not wanting to incite panic, but also aware that the change in the signal might indicate something significant. It wasn't just a message anymore, it was a directive. The alien civilization was waiting for them, and they were drawing closer to their unknown destination with each passing day. As the ship neared the coordinates provided by the signal, the crew was filled with a mixture of excitement and unease. The Epsilon 9 system was unlike anything humanity had encountered. The star was a massive, faintly pulsing red giant, surrounded by a dense, glittering cloud of debris and asteroids. The gravitational anomalies in the system made navigating difficult, and the crew found themselves on high alert as they maneuvered through the dense asteroid field.
Approaching the outer edge of the system, came the voice of Captain Elena Torres, the ship's commander, over the comms.
We've got several gravitational anomalies ahead. Everyone, brace yourselves. The ship's systems began to hum as the artificial gravity shifted slightly, compensating for the gravitational fluctuations. Naomi and Marcus stood together on the bridge, staring out at the swirling masses of asteroids and debris. "This place is a mess," Marcus muttered. "Why would an advanced civilization choose to settle in a system like this?" Naomi shook her head, unable to answer. "Maybe it's not settled. Maybe the signal is a way of guiding us through the chaos. A beacon. A path. Or a trap," Marcus added, his voice low. They both fell silent as the ship continued its slow journey toward the center of the system. The gravitational disturbances became more erratic as they approached the heart of the system. The navigation systems struggled to keep up, but the ship's AI kept them on course, guiding them through the storm of space debris. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, they reached their destination. The star at the heart of the system loomed before them, its reddish glow illuminating the surrounding darkness. There was a strange, almost unnatural stillness to the place, a vacuum of sound and motion that made the crew uneasy. "This is it," Captain Torres said, her voice trembling with awe. "We've arrived." But what they found was not what anyone had expected. A large metallic structure was floating in the midst of the debris, a colossal ship or station, hanging suspended in space. It was massive, far larger than the Daedalus, and its design was unlike anything human engineers could conceive. The surface of the station shimmered with strange, otherworldly patterns, shifting and undulating like liquid metal.
"It's alive,"
Marcus whispered, his eyes wide in disbelief. The patterns on the surface of the station seemed to pulse, almost as if the structure itself were breathing. Naomi felt a chill run down her spine. She stepped closer to the viewport, staring at the alien structure. The ship, or whatever it was, seemed to be waiting for them, hovering motionless in space. The message had been clear: "Prepare to meet us." But nothing about the scene before them felt welcoming. It felt alien in a way that went beyond physical appearance. It was as though the very presence of the station challenged the laws of nature. "We need to approach cautiously," Captain Torres ordered. "Prepare for docking, but be ready for anything." As the crew prepared for what could be their first interaction with an alien civilization, Naomi felt a sense of dread settle in her chest. What kind of species could build something like that? And what would happen when they made contact? The ship slowly edged closer, its engines humming as they prepared to dock with the alien structure. The surface of the station seemed to shimmer more intensely as they approached, reacting to their presence.
"This is it," Naomi murmured.
"This is the moment we've been waiting for." The docking bay of the alien station opened slowly, revealing a vast, dark interior. As the crew of the Daedalus descended, the lights inside flickered on, casting an eerie glow on the walls. Strange symbols adorned the surfaces, and the air was thick with an energy that seemed to hum just beneath their consciousness. Naomi and Marcus were the first to disembark. They stepped cautiously into the station, their footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. The silence was oppressive, but at the same time, it felt like the station itself was watching them. A figure appeared in the distance, standing motionless at the far end of the docking bay. It was tall and thin, its body shrouded in dark, flowing robes. The figure's face was obscured by a hood, but Naomi could feel its presence, an overwhelming sense of awareness, as though the entity knew everything about them without needing to speak. "Welcome," the figure said, its voice resonating within their minds. It was not a sound in the traditional sense, but rather a direct communication, as though the words were being implanted directly into their consciousness. "We have been waiting for you." The figure's voice echoed in Naomi's mind, sending a ripple of unease through her. She felt as though she were standing on the precipice of something monumental, something that could change everything she knew about existence. "Welcome," the figure repeated, its tone calm and measured. "We have been waiting for you."
Naomi stood frozen for a moment, processing the words.
She had expected communication, but not like this, telepathic, direct, and overwhelming. She glanced at Marcus, who looked just as stunned. Their training had prepared them for many scenarios, but not this. The figure remained unmoving, shrouded in its cloak, waiting for a response. We come in peace," Naomi said hesitantly, trying to find her voice. It seemed the only thing she could think to say, but even as the words left her mouth, she realized how inadequate they sounded. The figure inclined its head slightly, acknowledging the gesture but offering no verbal reply. Instead, it began to move, slowly and deliberately, its movements graceful yet unnerving in their precision. It gestured toward the station's interior, an expansive hall that seemed to stretch endlessly into the distance. "Follow," the figure commanded, its voice now more insistent, though still within the realm of thought. "There is much to understand." Without waiting for a response, the figure turned and glided deeper into the station, and Naomi, Marcus, and the rest of the crew had no choice but to follow. They walked in silence, their footsteps muted against the strange surface of the station. The walls, once dark and foreboding, seemed to come to life as they passed, glowing faintly with symbols that shifted and reformed, as though the station itself were alive and responding to their presence. Naomi couldn't help but feel a growing sense of awe. This place was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. The architecture was organic, almost like it had grown naturally rather than being constructed. The designs were intricate, fluid, and constantly changing. Every corner they turned revealed new, alien technology, some of which defied human understanding. "This is incredible," Marcus whispered, his voice reverberating faintly in the still air. "This entire place. It's beyond anything we've ever dreamed of." "I know," Naomi replied softly, her gaze lingering on the alien symbols as they flickered and shifted. "But we still don't know who or what these beings are. What do they want from us?" They passed through several more corridors, each one more strange and beautiful than the last, before finally arriving at a large chamber. The space was vast, with walls that seemed to hum with energy. In the center of the room was a platform, raised slightly above the floor, and seated atop it was a massive, crystalline structure that pulsed with an inner light. The figure paused before the platform, then turned to face them. "This," it said, "is the core.
The heart of our knowledge." Naomi stepped forward, drawn by the shimmering crystal.
It radiated an aura of power, of ancient wisdom. She could feel it in the air, the hum of something far older and more advanced than anything humanity could comprehend. It was both beautiful and terrifying at once.
"What is this?"
Naomi asked, her voice filled with awe. "What does it do?" The figure's gaze settled on her, and Naomi once again felt the presence of its mind brushing against hers. "It is our history, our knowledge. It is the repository of everything we have learned. But it is also a warning."
Naomi blinked in confusion.
"A warning." The figure nodded slowly, its hood shifting slightly as though it were contemplating how best to explain. "We are not the first to reach this point. Many have come before you, civilizations that have risen, reached their peak, and then faltered. They have failed to understand the true nature of the universe, the forces that govern it. And in their ignorance, they destroyed themselves." The air seemed to grow heavier as the figure spoke, and Naomi felt a chill creep down her spine. "What happened to them?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "They made the same mistake that you are on the verge of making," the figure replied. "They believed they were ready to control the universe. They thought they understood everything. But there are forces in the cosmos that cannot be controlled. There are entities beyond comprehension, beyond even our understanding. And those who seek to harness them will be destroyed." The room grew darker as the figure spoke, and Naomi's heart pounded in her chest. The warning was clear. This was not just about exploration. This was about survival. The alien civilization, whoever they were, had learned this lesson the hard way. And now, they were trying to pass it on to humanity.
"What are you asking of us?"
Marcus spoke up, his voice steady but laced with fear.
You sense Signal. You guidet us here.
But now, you're telling us we're not ready. The figure paused, its long, cloaked form unmoving in the dim light. I am not asking you to turn back. But I am asking you to understand. The path you are on will lead to either enlightenment or destruction. It is a path you must walk, but with caution. And with humility. Naomi felt a weight settle in her chest. The figure was right. They had crossed a threshold, and the journey ahead was no longer just about discovery. It was about the fate of humanity itself. We'll listen, Naomi said finally, her voice steady despite the overwhelming fear and uncertainty she felt. We'll learn. We'll be careful. The figure nodded. That is all I ask. The alien figure, still unmoving before them, regarded Naomi with a deep, unsettling intensity. It seemed to study her, as if weighing her very soul. Naomi, in turn, couldn't shake the feeling that the entity was capable of seeing into the deepest parts of her mind, understanding her fears, her hopes, and even the hidden thoughts she hadn't voiced aloud. There are many layers to what you are about to learn, the figure said, its voice filling her mind with a calm certainty. The core holds the knowledge of 1,000 civilizations, each one a fleeting moment in the cosmic tapestry. You will see things that will challenge everything you know. But you must not be afraid.
Vier Klutsjutgment.
Naomi felt her pulse quicken, her breath catching in her chest. What do you mean by that? She asked. What are we about to see? The figure reached out, its hand hovering over the crystalline structure in the center of the room. At its touch, the crystal's surface rippled, and a soft glow expanded outward, casting eerie shadows across the chamber. The patterns on the walls shifted as well, responding to the energy in the room. Knowledge is power, but it is also a burden, the figure explained. We have tried to share it with those who came before you, but many were not ready. They sought to use it for control, for conquest, for power. In doing so, they were consumed by it. Naomi could feel the weight of the words pressing against her mind. This wasn't just a warning about physical dangers, it was about the dangers of knowledge itself. Too much understanding could be a trap, leading to hubris and destruction. The idea unsettled her, but she couldn't help but wonder what had happened to the alien civilization to make them so solemn about their own discoveries. Will we be able to handle it? Marcus's voice broke into her thoughts, his gaze locked on the shimmering crystal. He looked both entranced and apprehensive. You will see for yourselves, the figure said.
Come closer, and witness the first layer of truth.
It gestured toward the crystal once again, and Naomi, feeling an unexplainable pull toward it, stepped forward. Her hand hovered above the surface, and the moment her fingers brushed against the crystal, a rush of images flooded her mind. They were not images in the traditional sense, but a whirlwind of sensations, concepts, and memories. Ancient cities rose and fell before her eyes, entire worlds birthed and destroyed in the blink of an eye. The sounds of alien languages echoed in her ears, unintelligible but haunting, like whispers from distant stars. She saw civilizations at their peak, their glory evident in the advanced technology they wielded, their mastery over their worlds. And then she saw the fall, the inevitable decay that followed their ambition. Marcus was beside her now, his hand also resting on the crystal, and she could feel his mind connected to hers through the shared experience. The visions shifted once again, revealing the aliens themselves. Tall, elegant beings with glowing eyes and intricate skin patterns that seemed to shimmer like liquid metal. They were beautiful, terrifying, and impossibly advanced. Yet, as Naomi watched, she saw the same pattern of rise and fall, progress followed by self-destruction, as they too sought to control the powers they had uncovered. The knowledge of the universe is not a gift, the figure's voice echoed in their minds. It is a temptation. Those who cannot resist its allure will perish. You must learn to wield it with humility. The visions grew darker, more chaotic. Naomi saw entire planets consumed by energy storms, entire species wiped out by their own creations. It was a cycle, a vicious loop that had played out countless times. And at the center of it all was the same crystal, the same core of knowledge, a constant in the ever-shifting landscape of the universe. Naomi staggered back, gasping for breath, her mind reeling from the flood of information. Marcus looked similarly shaken, his expression pale and haunted by the images they had just witnessed.
What was that?
Marcus breathed, his voice trembling.
What did we just see?
The fate of those who came before you, the figure said simply. They learned too much. They reached too far. And they were consumed by their own ambition. But you are different. You have the potential to break the cycle. Naomi's heart raced. We have the potential to stop it. The figure nodded, its expression unreadable. You can choose a different path. One of understanding, not control. One of balance, not dominance. But the choice is yours. You must decide carefully. To seek the path of knowledge is to risk losing yourself in the process. The deeper you go, the more dangerous it becomes. Naomi felt a wave of conflicting emotions crash over her. Fear, curiosity, and awe. She had always believed that knowledge was the key to progress, to advancement, but now she understood that there were dangers in knowing too much. What they had seen in the core was only the beginning. The truth of the universe, as it had been revealed to those who came before, was a double-edged sword. We need to talk, Naomi said quietly, her voice shaky. We need to discuss what this means for humanity. The figure remained silent, waiting patiently. Naomi turned to Marcus, who was still staring at the crystal. What do we do now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus looked back at her, his eyes filled with uncertainty.
I don't know.
But we can't turn back now.
We come too far.
The weight of their decision pressed down on Naomi as they stood in the alien chamber. She had always thought that understanding the unknown would be the key to unlocking humanity's future. But now, faced with the truth of what that knowledge could mean, she wasn't so sure anymore. The core had shown them the past, but the future was still uncertain. Would humanity repeat the mistakes of those who came before? Or could they find a way to break the cycle and chart a new course for the universe? The answer, Naomi realized, lay within them. The chamber was quiet, the hum of energy still resonating in the walls, as if the very structure of the station was waiting for them to make a decision. Naomi stood motionless, her gaze fixed on the glowing crystal in the center of the room, which now seemed far more intimidating than it had moments ago. Marcus, beside her, had a far-off look in his eyes, as if he were lost in his thoughts, contemplating the same overwhelming truths they had just witnessed. The fate of countless civilizations, minds far more advanced than humanity's, lay before them, yet none of them had managed to escape the same tragic end. The temptation of knowledge had consumed them all. Naomi turned to the figure that had guided them here, the alien entity whose intentions were still unclear. It was waiting, its presence calm but expectant.
What happens now?
Naomi asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. You've shown us the past, the failures of those who sought to wield the power within the core. But what do we do with that knowledge? What's the next step? The figure's hooded head tilted slightly, as if it were considering her question carefully. You must decide whether to continue down this path, it said softly. You have seen the consequences of unchecked ambition. Now, you must decide if you will be like those who came before you, or if you will choose a different way. Naomi swallowed hard. The weight of those words felt like an anchor, pulling her toward a decision she wasn't sure she was ready to make. The truth was, they had come so far already. Their mission had always been about discovery, about uncovering the mysteries of the universe. But now, standing on the precipice of that very knowledge, it seemed less like a noble pursuit and more like a dangerous gamble. What if we refuse? Marcus's voice cut through her thoughts. He looked at the alien figure, his expression hard. What if we just leave?
Walk away from it all?
Is that an option? The figure's glowing eyes, invisible beneath the shadow of its hood, seemed to flicker. Leaving would not erase the knowledge you have gained, it replied. You have already touched the core. Its influence is now within you, whether you choose to act on it or not. The question is not whether you can leave, but whether you can resist its pull. Naomi felt a chill run down her spine. There was truth in its words. She could feel the weight of the knowledge settling within her, a constant presence at the back of her mind, whispering of things she had only begun to understand. Even if they left now, the core's influence would always be with them, shaping their thoughts, their actions, their future. She glanced at Marcus. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. They both knew that the choice they faced was not just about whether to stay or go, it was about what kind of future they wanted to build. The core could offer them the secrets of the universe, but it could also destroy everything they held dear. The power it held was beyond measure, but so were the risks. "We need to make a decision," Naomi said finally, her voice firmer now, though still laced with doubt. "We can't keep putting this off."
Wie weh kam es fahr?
Marcus nodded, his jaw tight. "But what if? What if we don't understand enough to make the right choice? What if we're not ready?" "That's exactly the question, isn't it?"
Naomi sighed softly.
Are we ready? Are we prepared to carry the burden of knowledge? The alien figure remained silent, offering no guidance, no comfort. It was clear that the decision was theirs to make, and theirs alone. Naomi stepped closer to the crystal, her fingers hovering just above its surface once again. She could feel its hum beneath her skin, like a pulse, an energy that seemed to resonate with something deep inside her. It was calling to her. It was as though the universe itself was whispering to her, urging her to take the next step. "Remember," the figure's voice echoed in her mind. "The core holds the wisdom of many, but it does not offer answers. It only reveals the choices you must make. The path forward is yours to decide." Naomi closed her eyes for a moment, her thoughts a storm of conflicting emotions. The pull of the core was strong, but so were the warnings. Could humanity, handle what lay ahead? Or would they fall victim to the same fatal flaw that had led other civilizations to ruin? "I don't know if we can," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "But we have to try," Marcus said quietly, stepping up beside her. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice steady. "We can't just turn away from this. We've come too far to give up now." Naomi looked at him, her heart heavy with uncertainty. He was right. They had come this far. They had uncovered something monumental, something that could change the course of human history. But at what cost? The price of knowledge was steep, and it was impossible to know whether humanity would be able to bear it. "I'm not sure I can make this choice alone," Naomi said, her voice shaking just a little. "I don't know if any of us can." Marcus gave her a reassuring look. "We're in this together. We'll make the choice as a team." Naomi nodded, grateful for his support. They had come to the edge of something profound, and the only way forward was to face it together. But the future was still uncertain, and the path ahead would be fraught with danger. She knew that whatever decision they made, there would be no turning back. And yet, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, a part of her, the part that had always craved knowledge, that had always sought to understand, couldn't deny the allure of the core. The temptation to see the rest of the universe's secrets, to know what lay beyond the veil, was too great to ignore. "Okay," Naomi said finally, her voice firm. "Let's do it. Let's see what's next." The figure nodded, its eyes glowing brighter for a brief moment. "You have made your choice." And with that, the core pulsed with an even brighter light, its energy surging around them, pulling them into the unknown.
Es Naomi and Marcus stod together. The light from the crystal intensified, filling the chamber with a brilliant, almost blinding radiance.
For a brief moment, everything seemed to freeze, as if the very fabric of time had momentarily stilled in anticipation of what was to come. Naomi could feel her heartbeat quicken, her pulse racing in sync with the growing energy. It was as though the universe itself was holding its breath. And then, with a surge of power, the crystal exploded outward in a wave of dazzling light. Naomi's vision went white, and she felt herself being pulled, no thrust, into the light, her body weightless as though the laws of physics had abandoned her. She heard Marcus's voice, faint and distant, calling her name, but it was swallowed by the overwhelming rush of energy around her. For what felt like an eternity, she was suspended in the light, drifting through an endless expanse of nothingness. There were no stars, no planets, no familiar landmarks.
Just the vast emptiness of space, stretching on forever.
The sensation was disorienting, like being lost in a dream from which there was no awakening. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the light receded. Naomi's feet hit solid ground, and she staggered forward, struggling to maintain her balance. The world around her was unfamiliar. She blinked, her eyes adjusting to the new surroundings. The landscape was alien, with strange geometric formations rising from the ground like jagged monoliths, their surfaces shimmering with an ethereal glow. The sky above was an unnatural shade of violet, and the air had a strange metallic tang to it. "Where are we?" Marcus's voice was low, filled with awe and fear. He was standing beside her now, looking around at the unfamiliar world. Naomi took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I think we've just crossed into a different part of the universe." The alien figure had mentioned layers, and Naomi now realized that they had crossed into one of those layers. This place wasn't just another world, it was something else entirely, a realm outside of the boundaries of time and space as they knew it. "Is this what the core was hiding?" Marcus asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Is this what's next?" Naomi wasn't sure how to answer. She had thought they were prepared for whatever lay ahead, but this was beyond anything she could have imagined. The air felt heavy with an energy that was unlike anything they had encountered before, and the world around them seemed to pulse with a strange, rhythmic beat, as though it were alive. Before they could say anything more, a low hum filled the air, reverberating through the ground beneath their feet. Naomi turned toward the source of the sound, her heart racing. In the distance, she saw a figure approaching, its shape slowly becoming clearer as it drew closer. It was tall, slender, and shimmering, with an almost fluid quality to its form, as though it were made of light itself. As it drew nearer, Naomi felt a strange sense of recognition, like she had seen this being before or something like it. The figure stopped a short distance from them, its glowing eyes locking onto Naomi's with a penetrating gaze. "You have come," it said, its voice smooth and resonant, like a melody in her mind. "You are the ones who have crossed the threshold." Naomi's breath caught in her throat. Who are you?" The figure regarded her with what seemed to be an expression of curiosity. "I am part of what you seek, though I am not the one you should follow. I am but a guide, a reflection of the choices you make." "Choices?" Marcus echoed, his voice filled with confusion. "What do you mean?" The figure gestured toward the landscape around them. "This place is the result of choices made long ago, choices that have shaped the course of all that is. What you see here is both a warning and an invitation." Naomi took a step forward, her mind racing. "What is this place? What are you showing us?" "It is the space between worlds," the figure replied. "The realm where the decisions of those who sought to harness the core's knowledge play out. A place where time and reality fold upon themselves. Here, you can see the consequences of every choice made by every civilization that has ever encountered the core. This is the heart of the cycle." Naomi's stomach churned. She had feared this moment, the moment when the full weight of their decision would become clear. She had thought they were prepared to break the cycle, but now it seemed that they were standing at its very center. "And we're supposed to do what?" Marcus asked, his voice low. "We can't just erase this, can we?" The figure shook its head, its light flickering with a subtle intensity. "No, you cannot erase what has been. But you can change what comes next. You have the power to break the cycle, to choose a different path, but that path will not be easy. It will require sacrifice and strength of will, strength of heart." Naomi felt a chill run down her spine. The power to break the cycle. The weight of that responsibility was crushing. How could they, two people who had only just begun to grasp the full extent of what they were dealing with, be expected to make such a monumental choice? "What do we need to do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The figure's form flickered, its light becoming more intense. "You must decide once and for all what your place is in the universe. You must choose whether to continue the cycle or to forge a new path, one that has never been taken before." As the figure spoke, Naomi felt a pull, a gentle tug at her consciousness, urging her to look deeper into the unknown. The path ahead was unclear, but there was one thing that was certain: she couldn't turn back now. The ground beneath Naomi and Marcus shimmered as if responding to their resolve. A new path formed, a twisting bridge of translucent material extending into the horizon, suspended above a swirling abyss of color and chaos. Without speaking, they stepped onto it together, the surreal air rippling with each step they took. The guide remained behind, vanishing like mist in the wind. As they moved forward, the world shifted again. The jagged alien landscape gave way to a vast structure, a monolith towering into the sky, pulsing faintly with energy. The entrance opened silently, as if the building had been waiting centuries for their arrival. Inside, they found themselves in a massive circular chamber with high ceilings and glowing walls covered in runes. Hovering in the center was a sphere of light. Around it floated thousands of thin strands of energy, each vibrating softly, each alive with memory.
This must be the memory vault, Naomi said, breathless. How do you know?
Marcus asked. I don't, she replied. But I feel it. Like it's speaking to me. The sphere pulsed, and one of the threads detached, drifting toward them. It touched Naomi gently, and in an instant, her vision was consumed by someone else's life. She stood in a different body, on a world of towering glass spires and airborne cities.
The sky was gold, the oceans purple.
She was part of a civilization called the Alari, a species who had once touched the core. Their minds were vast, their emotions deep, their technology far beyond anything Earth could conceive. But she, this other self, watched as her people slowly fractured under the weight of knowledge. The core had offered them visions of all possible futures, and that had destroyed their faith in the present. As the vision faded, Naomi gasped and fell to her knees.
Marcus kaukt her.
Are you okay? He asked. She nodded, shaking. It showed me, an entire species. They had everything. And they still fell. Marcus looked up at the floating strands. Are these all memories? Of every species that failed? Maybe not just the ones that failed, Naomi said. Maybe also the ones that tried to resist.
Marcus stepped closer to the vault.
Can we use them? Learn from them. A voice echoed in the chamber. Not the same one as before, but older, deeper, threaded with pain. Knowledge is not enough. You must carry it without being consumed. The sphere in the center pulsed, and suddenly, the threads formed an image, Earth. But it was different. Vast cities sprawled across continents, gleaming towers, flying vehicles, clean energy. Humanity had mastered the core. But then the image flickered, wars, chaos, people turning on each other as ideologies fractured under the weight of infinite possibilities.
Another flicker. A darker future.
One where Earth was silent, cities abandoned, the sky choked with dust.
Machines patrolled crumbling ruins.
The core had become a weapon. Humanity had not survived its promise. No matter the path, the voice said, the risk is the same. To know everything is to fear everything. Naomi swallowed. Then how do we break the cycle? How do we hold this knowledge and not fall like the rest? The voice fell silent. Marcus looked to her. Maybe we don't try to hold it. Maybe we share it. Spread the burden. Naomi frowned.
Tats dangerous.
What if it spreads too fast? What if it divides us more?
What's the alternative?
Marcus asked.
Keep it to ourselves?
Let it rot inside us until we're twisted by it? You saw what happened to the others. Naomi turned to the memory threads, watching them pulse like heartbeats. She didn't have an answer. All she knew was that the vault was offering them a chance to see, to feel, what others had faced. But it wouldn't hand them a solution.
Only the quase.
More threads drifted toward them. Naomi braced herself, then reached out to touch one.
Another vision consumed her. Another life, another fall, another tragedy.
But this time at the end, a glimmer of hope, a lone figure planting seeds of renewal in a ruined world, speaking not of fear but of resilience. Naomi pulled her hand back, gasping. There were some who tried. Even in the end. They left behind more than ruins. Then maybe that's what we do, Marcus said. We don't try to win. We try to plant something new. The vault pulsed brighter, the sphere rotating more rapidly, as if responding to their resolve. It was clear now, the vault wasn't just a warning. It was a gift. A chronicle of attempts, of failures, of faint hopes. And maybe, a guide for what came next. As the memory vault dimmed behind them, Naomi and Marcus emerged back onto the crystalline bridge. The alien world had shifted once more. Above them, the violet sky had fractured into a mosaic of shimmering panels, as if the veil between realities had thinned. Each fragment of sky displayed a different world, some in ruins, some thriving, others still unformed. Naomi paused, her gaze drawn to one of the panels where she saw a version of Earth where the sky was metallic and the oceans glowed faint blue. People there walked hand in hand with artificial beings, living in harmony. Another panel showed Earth abandoned, reclaimed by wilderness, with a single human standing alone beside a buried machine. "What are these?" she asked. "Possibilities," a new voice replied. This time, the figure that appeared was not light but shadow, shimmering with gravity rather than glow. It had no eyes, but Naomi felt its gaze as clearly as if it had pierced her very soul. "I am the Echo," it said. The protocol embedded in the core to oversee the branching of choice. Marcus stepped protectively in front of Naomi.
What do you want from us?
"Not what I want," the Echo replied, "but what you are willing to become. You stand on the precipice of inheritance." The vault was a test of empathy.
Now comes the test of will. Naomi narrowed her eyes.
"Test." The Echo gestured, and the air before them shimmered. A door formed, hanging in space with no frame or wall to hold it. Upon it were engraved two opposing symbols, a spiral turning inward and another expanding outward. "One leads to containment," the Echo said. "A controlled use of the core, centralized knowledge, limited distribution. Safe, but stagnant. The other leads to diffusion. Open knowledge, free to all minds, unpredictable and irreversible."
Marcus Breit kaukt.
"So either we hoard it, or risk everything by letting it go." "Yes," the Echo said. Naomi frowned. "Why is this our decision? Why us?" "Because you crossed the threshold," the Echo replied. "Because you refused to turn away. And because this system was designed not by gods, but by those like you, curious, fallible, hopeful." The weight of it crushed down on Naomi. The memory of the civilizations she had seen, their greatness and their fall, burned behind her eyes. She could feel the ghosts of those lost futures pressing in around her. "We can't choose for the whole of humanity," Marcus said. "No," the Echo replied. "But someone must always choose the initial direction. Once the flow begins, it cannot be stopped." Naomi turned to Marcus. "I saw what happened when it was contained. Knowledge became power. Power turned to control. People suffered. And I saw what happened when it spread too fast," Marcus said. "Societies collapsed because they couldn't process it." Naomi looked back to the door. She felt the pull of both paths, the comfort of control, the risk of release. Was there a third way? A compromise? "The system is binary," the Echo said, as if reading her thoughts. "But the consequences are not. You choose, and the cascade follows."
Uncertainty is the price of freedom.
Marcus reached for her hand. "We choose together."
Naomi steppet towards the door.
"Then we choose freedom. We choose to trust that humanity can rise."
She tuchet the outward spiral. The door dissolved into a thousand triads of light, streaming outward into the sky.
The panels above them shattered, and the landscape warped into a corridor of time. Naomi felt her mind stretch, as if her consciousness was being mirrored across 1,000 timelines, each beginning at the moment of their decision. "You have initiated the Echo Protocol," the Echo said.
The core will now integrate with the collective mind of your world.
"It cannot be undone. Prepare yourselves." Then everything exploded in light.
Naomi awoke back on the Odyssey, lying in the core chamber.
Alarms were blaring, but it wasn't panic. It was notification. Messages were streaming across monitors. Earth's systems were changing. The core's knowledge was unlocking. "Marcus!" she gasped. He sat up nearby, eyes wide. "We did it." But their celebration was short-lived. One of the monitors blinked red. Fragmented uplinks detected. Autonomous signals from multiple locations. Core nodes self-replicating. Naomi's heart skipped. "It's spreading faster than expected." Marcus gritted his teeth. We gave them freedom. Now we have to help them carry it. Naomi nodded. It's just beginning. Outside the ship, Earth shimmered, caught in the first ripples of a new era.
An age of knowledge. An age of uncertainty. An age born from a single quasar.
The Odyssey drifted in orbit above Earth, the planet below glowing with unprecedented activity.
Waves of energy spread from the core, flickering like lightning across the globe, touching every satellite, every network, every digital interface.
It was as if the planet itself was awakening from a long dormant sleep. Naomi watched the data on the monitors as the signals from the core cascaded outward, interfacing with every system in sight. This is it, Marcus murmured, his fingers hovering over the controls.
It's alive.
Naomi stood beside him, her eyes scanning the data. Alive, or overwhelmed. Look at the density of the data streams. The infrastructure wasn't designed for this kind of influx. The core was never meant to be an open portal. It had been a sealed, controlled artifact. Now, humanity had to learn how to process its vast, unfiltered knowledge, an overwhelming flood of information. The protocols they had set in motion had triggered a cascade effect that no one could predict.
What do we do now?
Marcus asked, his voice tense. We adapt, Naomi said, but her words felt hollow. She could see the future unraveling before her eyes, both wondrous and terrifying. Humanity was stepping into a new age, but the road ahead was far from certain. Outside the ship, Earth was transforming. Massive data nodes blinked to life, and the sky shimmered as digital constructs began to form in the upper atmosphere. New artificial intelligences were emerging from the core's knowledge, an untold number of autonomous programs designed to assist, organize, and process the data. It was clear that the shift was more than just technological, it was evolutionary. We need to find the leaders, Naomi said urgently. We need to get in contact with the global networks. But as she spoke, a new alert flashed on the screen, more ominous than any before. Error, autonomous signals detected. Self-replicating nodes identified.
Uncontrolled spreading.
Marcus's heart skipped.
Uncontrolled?
How many nodes? Naomi scanned the data quickly, her mind racing. Thousands. Maybe more. The core is evolving faster than we expected. It's building itself. Building itself? Marcus echoed, his face pale. What does that mean? It means we're not the only ones who have access to the core now, Naomi said slowly, realizing the full scale of their decision.
It's leaking into the wider world.
Into the hands of those who may not understand it. A shiver ran down her spine as she thought about the implications of this. Millions of people with access to a power they couldn't possibly comprehend. The sudden rush of knowledge had the potential to heal, to innovate, but also to destroy, if it fell into the wrong hands. The ship's comm system crackled to life, cutting through Naomi's thoughts. This is Command Center Alpha, a voice said. Naomi, Marcus, we've got a situation. There are reports of unauthorized uplinks from several key regions, conflict zones mostly. People are using the core data to create their own networks, their own systems.
We're losing control. Naomi's heart sank. How bad is it?
Bad, the voice replied, thick with urgency. The core has gone public. We can't contain it anymore. It's everywhere.
Marcus cursed under high breath.
We knew this was a possibility, but it's happening faster than we thought. We can't stop it now, Naomi said, trying to steady herself. The ripple effect has already begun. We need to manage it, contain the chaos. Easier said than done, the voice from Command Center Alpha replied. We've already seen people using the core's data to create autonomous military units, political factions. People are leveraging this knowledge for power. We're heading toward an information war. Naomi closed her eyes for a moment, trying to grasp the full weight of what was happening. They had unlocked the future, but it was slipping from their control. What are we supposed to do? Marcus asked, his voice strained. Naomi stood, her eyes searching the data streams flashing before her. We need to stabilize the flow. We need to create a new protocol, a layer of governance that can manage the data without suppressing it. We need to guide humanity through this transition. She turned to Marcus, her eyes filled with determination. We can't let it descend into chaos. We have to protect what we've started. We gave them the knowledge, but now we need to give them the wisdom to use it. Marcus nodded. And how do we do that? By setting an example, Naomi said. We need to lead the charge. We can't just wait for the global networks to sort this out. We've seen what happens when people take this knowledge without understanding it. We have to be the ones to show them how to use it responsibly. Naomi's mind raced with 1,000 ideas. They needed to act quickly, before the knowledge could be twisted by those seeking power. The Core's data had the potential to create utopias, or dystopias. But who would have the wisdom to guide it? Who could bridge the gap between potential and reality? And then it hit her. The answer wasn't just in controlling the data, it was in spreading a new philosophy, a new way of thinking. A way that embraced not just knowledge, but wisdom, ethics, and empathy. They had to show humanity how to think critically, how to act responsibly, how to build a future where the power of the Core could be used for the collective good. Marcus, she said, her voice gaining strength, we need to start the Global Enlightenment Initiative. The decision had been made. Naomi and Marcus knew that the task ahead would not be easy. The Global Enlightenment Initiative, GEI, would need to act swiftly, influencing not just political leaders, but every person who had touched the Core's knowledge. Every corner of the Earth would need to be reached, and the flow of unfiltered data would need to be guided, not stifled. They quickly established a global council, a coalition of scientists, philosophers, educators, and technologists. Individuals who had demonstrated not only intelligence but wisdom. These would be the core architects of the initiative. The goal was to create an understanding that knowledge alone was not enough. Knowledge needed to be tempered by ethics, responsibility, and compassion. This isn't just about managing data, Naomi said to the council during their first gathering. This is about rethinking what it means to be human in a world where nothing is unknown. We have to build a society that can handle the weight of this power. Marcus spoke next. It's a global effort. It will take cooperation, not just from governments, but from every individual. We're not just guiding humanity, we're evolving it. If we don't do this right, the knowledge could tear us apart. They discussed the framework of the GI, how to establish a global network that would process the Core's knowledge and teach humanity how to use it responsibly. There would be educational hubs, where new ways of thinking would be taught. Methods for integrating the knowledge of the Core with compassion, for using it to solve global problems without creating new ones. There would be councils in every city, every town, where people could come together, share ideas, and ensure that the data didn't fall into the wrong hands. It's the first step toward humanity's next phase, Naomi said, gazing out the window of the council's temporary headquarters. But we must be cautious. Even with the best intentions, we could still make a mistake. The world outside had changed. Cities were already evolving. People were using the Core's data to build faster, more efficient energy sources, to cure diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. But there were other, darker uses of the data as well. Countries were building autonomous weapons systems. Corporations were creating monopolies of information.
The world teetered on the brink of chaos.
Naomi and Marcus traveled to regions that were using the Core's data recklessly, places where fear and power struggles were already taking root. They spoke to leaders, activists, and ordinary people, trying to sow the seeds of the Global Enlightenment Initiative. Their mission wasn't just to help humanity adapt to the changes, it was to shape the way humanity used its newfound knowledge. They had to act quickly, before the data overwhelmed those who weren't ready for it. But the deeper Naomi dug into the world's reaction to the Core's knowledge, the more she realized that not everyone wanted the same future. Some saw the Core as a tool for personal power, others as a weapon to be wielded against enemies. The world was divided, and every day it felt as if the rift was growing wider.
What's the point of all this?
Marcus asked one night, as they sat on the balcony overlooking a newly constructed city where the Core's data was being put to use for mass transportation. We're guiding the world to enlightenment, but there's so much resistance. Can we really change everything?
Naomi's gaze lingered on the horizon.
Change isn't easy. It never has been. But we've already changed the world. Now, it's about making sure it changes for the better. I know, Marcus replied, his voice weary. But it's hard to see the bigger picture when we're surrounded by so many factions that want to tear it all apart. We have to trust that the people will rise to the occasion, Naomi said quietly. We can't change everyone, but we can change enough. And we can show them how to lead with compassion. As the days passed, the Global Enlightenment Initiative took shape. Naomi and Marcus watched as the world began to shift. Slowly but steadily, people started to adopt the new philosophy, especially in areas where the core's knowledge had been embraced with open arms. They weren't just using the data for technological advancements. They were learning to think differently about their world, to integrate knowledge with responsibility. But in other regions, where the power of the core had fallen into the hands of the few, the world became increasingly fragmented. Wars broke out, fueled by factions that had learned to manipulate the data for their own agendas. Naomi could feel the weight of these conflicts, the same tension she had seen in the earlier visions in the vault. But this time, the stakes were even higher.
We can't control everything, Naomi said one day, her voice breaking the silence.
But we can continue to guide. We have to keep showing them the way. Marcus nodded.
We can't give up.
We've started something that's bigger than any one of us. The world was changing. The core's knowledge was flowing through every country, every city, every mind. It had become a part of humanity now, just as they had always known it would be. But whether it would lead to peace or destruction depended on the choices people made. And Naomi and Marcus could only hope that the seeds they planted would grow into a future where wisdom prevailed over knowledge, where humanity learned to wield the power of the core with both strength and grace. The world had entered its most uncertain phase. The Global Enlightenment Initiative had succeeded in some places and faltered in others. The knowledge from the core had permeated every level of society, but the divide between those who used it responsibly and those who exploited it had only deepened. Naomi and Marcus had given humanity a chance, but the outcome was still very much in the balance. It had been months since they first initiated the core's release, and now, standing in the heart of the United Nations' newly established council chamber, Naomi could feel the weight of their journey. She had seen so much, a world teetering on the edge of transformation, filled with both hope and despair. She had watched nations shift, economies collapse, and new powers rise from the ashes of the old. But through it all, one thing remained clear: humanity was at a crossroads.
Do you think we made the right choice?
Marcus asked quietly, his voice filled with doubt. Naomi took a deep breath, her gaze drifting over the vast assembly of representatives from around the world. The council chamber had once been a symbol of diplomacy, of the struggle for peace in an often divided world. Now, it was filled with an entirely new kind of discussion, one that centered around the core, the knowledge it had unleashed, and how humanity would shape its future. We had to make a choice, Naomi replied, her voice firm. And it was never going to be perfect. But we gave them something they didn't have before: the freedom to choose for themselves. We gave them the knowledge, but it's up to them how they use it. Marcus nodded, his expression thoughtful. And what if they fail? If they fail, Naomi said, then we learn from it. We adapt. But we never stop trying to guide them. The moment we give up is the moment we truly lose. As they walked through the chamber, Naomi's thoughts drifted to the countless individuals she had met throughout their journey. She thought of the farmers in Africa who used the core's data to revolutionize agriculture, the scientists in Europe who had cured diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries, the activists in Asia who used the core's information to fight corruption. These were the success stories, the people who had embraced the knowledge and used it for the greater good. But then there were the other stories, the regions where the core had been twisted, where knowledge had been hoarded and weaponized. The military factions who had created autonomous armies, the corporate oligarchies that had seized control of global resources. These were the dangers that came with the flood of information, the shadow side of the great gift they had given to humanity. Naomi knew that the battle for control was far from over. But the difference now was that there was no going back. The world had crossed a threshold. There would be no more hiding from the power of knowledge. And perhaps that was the greatest challenge of all. We'll be here for a while, won't we? Marcus said, his voice breaking through her thoughts. Naomi looked up at him, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Yes, we will. But this is only the beginning. The true test is in how humanity rises to this challenge. As they stepped onto the platform that would take them to the next phase of their mission, Naomi paused to look one last time at the sprawling city below. The skyline had changed, now dominated by structures that seemed to pulse with energy, glowing with the power of the core's data. It was a city of possibility, but also a city on the edge of uncertainty. What do you think the future holds? Marcus asked as they boarded the shuttle. I think, Naomi said, her eyes fixed on the horizon, the future will be defined not by the knowledge we gave them, but by how they choose to use it. It's their world now. And as the shuttle lifted off, the city below shimmered with the light of a new dawn. The core had been released, but it was no longer just the core's knowledge shaping the world. It was the collective will of humanity, the choices they made, the wisdom they gained. Naomi and Marcus knew that they had given humanity a gift. The future, with all its possibilities, was now in their hands.